Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Well, today we're going to get started on probably the most requested tutorial, the most questions I've received over the past year, and that is how to do a curved piece to fit into your village. So we're going to focus on doing a vignette of that. Again, I don't have room back here for the trick-or-treat lane this year, I don't think. But I still want to show you the process that I use to make a curved piece. This piece is going to hold 3 houses. They could be any home you choose. This could work for winter or fall or Halloween. We're going to flavor it for Halloween, obviously. And then we'll kind of show you step by step how to put this together and go for it to where when it's done, I think if it turns out like the others, it's going to be really classy, very elegant to display. And so yeah, let's go from there. We'll jump right in. This is going to be, again, a multi-part tutorial series. Don't know exactly how many parts it's going to take to get us complete. We'll cross that bridge as we get a little further along. But without further ado, let's jump in and take a look at the planning process of how we start designing this. Okay, so let me start by showing you the pieces of foam that I've already pre-cut, or at least one piece that I've pre-cut. And we'll kind of go through the foam process of what you're going to need and then build that to your specific specifications. I know that I'm not going to display this one. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do with this piece. I guess it depends on what it looks like when I'm finished. But let me show you the pieces of foam that I've got and where I got them and how I cut them. The first piece I picked up, and you guys have seen this before. These are the 2x2 XPS foam that you can pick up at Lowe's or Home Depot. They come in either a pink or a green. You've seen both. This is the 1-inch type, and this is what we're going to use for the base of this particular vignette. Now, if I was going to put this vignette back here, I would have taken my trusty tape measure and would have measured probably 22 inches. Now these come in 2 foot by 2 foot sections, so 24 by 24, and you can kind of see on the bottom there, this is 24 inches long and 24 inches wide. For me to set that back there, I would have had to have made this piece 22 inches long by 2 foot wide, 22 inches deep by 2 foot wide. And that's to allow the surge protector to go behind it so we can plug in all the accessories and houses and still have room to set this without it sliding over the edge of that counter space. So whatever counter space you're working with, if you're working with something large, and that's how I'm building this, it's just a 2 foot by 2 foot square, and we're gonna leave it like that. If you had different dimensions, obviously I think you want the 2 foot wide probably if you're gonna continue on with another 2 foot piece and then maybe another one like we did on Manor Row or like I did back here last year with Trick or Treat Lane. But the depth, if you're limited like I am back here, you've got to consider your surge protectors, your plugs, and things like that. And I hide all that stuff at the end. You can see a little bit back there, and I've showed you on the other video with some fall foliage or the garland type fall decorations that just kind of runs behind that hides, it helps to hide the wires. So that's the first piece, 24 by 24, 1-inch base. And then this is a different variety. This is the foam insulation, still XPS type foam. And I've taken the shiny back off and then the white marking front off. And then laid this down and traced over the 24 by 24. So I made this one 24 by 24 as well. And I cut that out with, basically took a black Sharpie and laid the pink foam on top of this. This was a 4 by 8 foot sheet. This is what this came from. And basically just traced the pink part out and then took my hot wire foam cutting knife and just slowly cut this to where it looks pretty decent. And it's 2 foot by 2 foot. So it matches the pink foam. And so the way that's gonna work initially is we're going to stack those on top of each other. Now this bottom piece is a little warped, and that's okay. You can kind of see it's bent. Not the best piece ideally, but we could certainly switch this out for another one, or we will glue these down to where they don't come back up, and you don't really have to worry about it if you do that. So, but these are now 2 foot by 2 foot. They kind of match if you line them up, or at least close enough if they're lined up properly. So that's what we're going to start with. A couple of other things that you're going to need. Now, the first vignette, or the first village that I did that I had the curved piece, I just did it, sort of eyeballed it. And I said, well, there's got to be a better way, because it took me an incredibly long time to, once I eyeballed it, then I try to figure out how to cut the sidewalk. I used a different type of foam on that older display. We're going to do this one totally different. Hopefully have it look a lot more, a lot better and a little more classy look to it than what the original. That was the first village that I'd ever made. And so very happy with the way it turned out, but we've grown. And certainly I've grown in my skills since then, and the channel's grown. We're coming up on a year. So I think we're better than that today. So we're going to try this a little different. So with that, I found this piece of flexible curve at Hobby Lobby. You can see the price there. Hobby Lobby, $10. It's 24 inches. It looks very clear. That's because I've already got it out of the wrapper and already kind of got it bent. But this thing is pretty cool. It allows you, it's very flexible. It allows you to bend it, but it holds and retains whatever shape that you put it in. And it's 24 inches long. And so once we determine how we're going to curve our road, then we will just match this to the foam. We will trace this, and then because it holds its shape, we can transfer this same shape then onto the sidewalk to cut that out and get the same, hopefully the same diameter circle, the same diameter parts and pieces. So when we start putting it all together, it all fits perfectly, or as close to being perfect as we can get for foam. And so I anticipate we're gonna run into a few issues. I don't know, I've never used this before, but you're gonna see it as we do it. And so I am going to try this year. I think it will actually help. And if it doesn't, then we'll just eyeball it and go for it like that. But I think this is going to help, and I think it was a good $10 spent. So we'll see. So I'm going to use that. And then I'm really a Sharpie and some houses, right? And so we're going to use 3 houses. I'm going to use 2 trick-or-treat lane houses, and I'm going to use 1 totally resin house. It is my favorite resin house, and it's Hazel's Haunted House. It's a gift box set released a few years back. I believe they're still available, but I'll do a whole review on that separately from this, as I will do reviews on all the trick-or-treat lane houses. So you're going to get a sneak peek of how we're going to set this up, but not a total review of these homes, not quite yet. So with that, I think we're ready to at least start designing and putting our homes out and trying to figure out how we're going to get this to work. So let me reposition, get some houses out, and we'll be right back. Okay, so you can see now I've got both foam pieces stacked on top of each other. I've got the Glares and Stairs house on this side. I've got Hazel's Haunted House back here, and again, this is the all resin home, one of the few that I actually like, but this one's amazing, I think. And then I've got the Bat House from Trick or Treat Lane on this corner here. And so there's a couple of ways we can do this with this stacked up. I think I would like, because Hazel's Haunted House doesn't really fit per se into this scene, because this is a trick-or-treat lane, this is a trick-or-treat lane house, and this is a little bit of an odd house, which is kind of labeled as a haunted house. And so maybe it should be a haunted house up on a hill, so maybe it should be up higher with some more stairs coming down and then some more stairs coming down, kind of like in my original trick-or-treat lane, except I believe we had Grimsley's up there. You could use any house you want. You could use all mansions. You could use all trick-or-treat lane houses. You could use whatever houses that you want if you're doing a 3-house curved street vignette. But I think I want this up a little higher, so at some point a little bit later, we will be cutting out another piece, 2-inch piece of foam to sit up here for this house to rest on. And we'll do that. You'll see me cut that as well. So with that, then we want to figure out, the first step we want to figure out, is this where we want our houses? And I think it is. We don't need, with this vignette, we don't need much of a backyard at all. Now, if you were going to put a wooden fence in the back like we did on the circus, if you wanted to have the fence running all the way behind the houses, you would take all that in consideration and pull these a little bit forward to do that. I'm not going to do that with this particular vignette. So I want the houses to sit back a little bit farther so I have more room to work with. So I'm going to do the same here. I do want a little bit of a side yard. That way, if we want to put a fence or a tree or what have you, we've got a little bit of room to do that. And then we want to put some figures and things like that into the front yard. As a matter of fact, Hazel is actually part of this gift set. And so Hazel will sit out here in the front yard or somewhere along by her house. So we need to take that in consideration as we're building our street. And if you've got any other things that you want to put in the front yard with people or what have you, then you just need to kind of figure that in on where you're going to want your yard to start and stop. So the way I do that is I want there to be some sort of a little walkway coming out of this house. Right? It doesn't have to be huge, but I want a little walkway to be coming out, and I want it to obviously terminate somewhere out here where the road is going to start. Same for this house. I want a walkway to be coming out, probably the entire length of this porch to be coming out. Same thing over here. And then obviously the same thing over here, yet we're going to have double the stairs on this one. So we'll get to that. But so you try to determine how far you want your front yard to come out. And I would think that from here is probably a pretty good spot. So somewhere right around in there for this yard. So that would look something like that for that yard. So you can see the depth there in this house. That's a pretty good distance. And then the same thing on this side. If we're gonna have a small little front yard, we probably want something maybe like that. And so over here, it would sort of look like that as a depth for a front yard. You got room for an accessory, some trees, some shrubs, and things like that. So you're trying to take all that in consideration. Now you can do this you can do this many ways. One, you could just simply freehand a curve from one line to the next. You could take a string, tie it around here, hold it back here, almost like a compass, and bring this to one side, like so, holding that string back at this end here and just kind of rotating that around. Or what I have decided I want to try this year is this flexible curve. And so in order to do that, we wanted to make it sort of as straight as possible. So I'm going to try to get that as straight as I possibly can before I start, just to make sure that we're starting from an even surface, even playing field, I guess, just to make sure there's no major curves in there. And that's about as straight, I think, as we're going to be able to get that. And then I'm going to simply line both of these up like this, with one here and one here. Now, I don't like that's not much of a curve, so I want to continue to sort of shape that, and we'll continue to work this to get it exactly like we're trying to fit. And then once we're happy with it, and it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, it should be close. And so just trying to keep all this together here, and maybe something like that. It's a little too much of a curve there. Straighten this back out. So maybe something like that. So now you can start to see the curve, and I'm a stickler for making sure that it's straight. So I want to make sure that we're on par here, and we're using this as we want it. So a little bit more of a curve here, a little bit more of a curve there, and then straighten this piece out about like that. And we're getting closer. That's probably pretty good right like that. So that's a pretty good curve there. Now, is it perfectly level and heads on? It's pretty close. It doesn't have to be, again, picture perfect. So what I want to do now is hold this in place and really just trace around this curve that we've created. Okay, and then as we remove this, I want to preserve this curve. I don't want to touch it so much. I don't want to bend it. I want to just set it down and set it aside. And now you can see the curve that we have. And so what we're going to do is this whole piece is going to be cut off, right? From right here to right here. This is going to represent what we've got left underneath is going to be our sidewalk and our street. Okay, so that's what we're going to have to work on next. So hopefully that makes sense of how we use the flexible curve, how we design the homes that we're going to have. Now, if you had smaller homes or larger homes, obviously that's going to all play into your design. So you've got to know what you're going to put there, or at least representative. Most of the trick-or-treat lane homes are the same size, or roughly the same size. This is a little bit narrower, but it's obviously a lot taller than the trick-or-treat lane homes. The Bat House, honestly, is a little bit wide, a little bit more deep versus wide than the Galers and Stairs house. So, but again, similar footprint. And so you could put any trick-or-treat lane home here. You could put a mansion here. You could actually put another trick-or-treat home here and be just fine. And if you did put another trick-or-treat home there, you may not even want to raise it up. It may just be like a curved part of the cul-de-sac or something like that going around for trick-or-treating. Totally your call on how you want your design to look. But with that, let's go out in the garage now and cut this piece, and we'll pick it up from there. Okay, so here we are in the garage. You can see I've got my piece set up and ready to cut. This is the same one we did inside, Big X. We're gonna cut right through here. I've got my hot wire tool plugged in, and so let me adjust the camera real quick, and I'll do that as you guys are watching. And we'll start getting the process ready to cut. So a little bit more of a camera angle here. All right. Okay, so this is hot now. And I'm just going to stand this up like so and just kind of come right into here. Okay, so this is what we're left with. Some of that stuff off of there. Okay, let's go test fit this onto the piece and see how it looks. Okay, so you can see now that this is the street level. We'll have our sidewalk and then our street, and then a little area here we'll fill in with some grass and a curb and all that stuff there. And so again, I haven't really touched this since I took it out, but you see how it lies right back up, or at least very close to that curb. So to build the sidewalk, really all we have to do is something like that, and then measure that curve, and then we cut our sidewalk just like that, and that'll be the sidewalk. Then we take our street into consideration. Street will probably come out to about here, and then we'll probably be left with this area in here that we have to decorate with a tree or a little cemetery or whatever you want to do to make it look the way you would like it to look. And we're gonna put lights in this one as well. We're gonna have some folks have been asking, hey, how do you cut the lights and then solder and plug all that? I'll show you how to do that on this tutorial. Obviously later, that'll be one of the final steps before we finish it. But I'll show you how to do that on this tutorial as well. So this curve piece is going to come in handy. So again, we're not going to mess with it. We're just going to let it sit there. But that is how this is going to look. And now at some point when we're far enough along, we are going to carve all of this to look like stonework or brickwork along the sides, along the whole front, and along this side over here. So this whole thing will look very, it'll look in place once we're done with it. And again, we're going to elevate this house, which is coming here in a little bit later. So with that, I think we're now ready to look at perhaps cutting the sidewalk. So let me get some additional foam. We're going to use XPS foam. I just got to find a piece that'll work, and we'll go and start looking at cutting that piece. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I was able to cut some foam for the sidewalk, and I'm using this green XPS foam for the sidewalk. I've cut several pieces. I got a couple of questions on how would you cut a sidewalk if you didn't have a hot wire foam table? And that's hard to answer because I don't know. I mean, the sidewalks that I cut now are about 1/4 inch in thickness, and it just cuts right so smooth right along the hot wire foam table. Now, when I built the Trick or Treat lane, the first piece that I ever built, it was the first village piece you guys know that I built. I didn't know how to do any of this, so I used cosplay type foam that you can actually cut with scissors, and then glued that on. It doesn't hold the imprint. You can't do the tinfoil rolling technique on it. You can't carve it up, and it doesn't hold lines real well. But I just took a pen and ran it back and forth to create some of the lines, and it looked okay. It looked like a sidewalk, but I just cut it with scissors, and it took forever to figure that out, let alone what we're trying to do today. So the short answer is I don't know how you would do that without a foam table. If you've got a way, or you know a way, knock it out. Do whatever makes you happy and makes it you think it looks good. That's the most important part. But we use the hot wire foam table and cut some foam at about 1/4 inch thickness for the sidewalk. Now let me reposition the camera and show you how I've got this set up, and I think probably the easiest way to get this sidewalk cut out. Okay, you can see here I've got 3 pieces of XPS foam cut at 1/4 inch. They're all lined up together. The only bad side to that hot wire foam table is the mechanism to cut is only about this tall. So I can only really get about a 6 or a 7 inch piece through there. And so unfortunately I need more than that. So I'm gonna have to piece some of this stuff together to make it look right. It's not gonna be perfect, but once it's painted and detailed, you'll barely even notice it. So the way we're gonna do this is 2 steps. I've got the houses moved really close to the front to create a little more weight. I'm gonna push this down, and I'm simply going to trace along here. And that will be for that piece of the sidewalk. So that'll be cut using hot wire foam tools. And then I'm gonna hold this piece down and trace around that. And then these 3 sections then will be glued down eventually as part of the sidewalk. And this is about the correct width that I want the sidewalk. So I simply just took the bendable piece, put it out a little bit to the distance, made sure it was straight here and straight here. And then it looks about the same distance all the way around. And now we're just going to trace around this piece. So just simply hold this piece down and start the tracing. Okay, so now if we take that up, that's what we're left with. And that, when it's cut out, will be our sidewalk. Now I know I can terminate somewhere around here. A little overhang. I know the real reason is right there. And likewise, I need to come out to about here or so. I can cut all that off. So that's kind of where we're at. And I may wait and just use a straight edge to do that with. But that's how we're going to cut the sidewalk. And with any luck, it'll look like a sidewalk. So let's go out and start cutting this, and then we'll come in and test fit it and see how it looks. Okay, so we're out in the garage. I've got the tools plugged in. I got it on a little lower setting for heat because I want to make sure that we don't go too fast through here. So I'll do a test cut. That's pretty good. It's pretty slow. And because I want to make sure we're very accurate on these. So I'm going to start with the first piece here. And I'm just going to simply try to get as close. Actually, I'm going to turn this down just a little bit more. Probably about halfway. Give that a second to work. I want to get this as accurate as possible so it butts right up against that piece. So let's see here. Okay, that's pretty good. Now it is going to create some strings when you go on a low heat setting. It creates a little more of this fuzz, but you can always, sand that down or kind of just, swipe it and it'll come off. So let's take it back in and see what it looks like. Okay, as you can see here, I've got the sidewalk fit and it looks like it's a good shape and good design. I'll hold it up just a little bit so you can see, but it fits very close into the area where it's supposed to go. So I'm happy with that. And so now let's move on to carving the big piece up here and then a small curb for down here. Okay, so I've made a couple of more cuts. This is the first cut. This is another, just a little over 1/4 of an inch on the Proxon. Same thickness, 1/4 inch thick to match the sidewalk. But this is going to sit, once everything's glued down into place, the road's on. This will be painted, and then this will bend to the outline of the road. So it'll look something like that. So you can see the area that we're going to be left with to, put a small graveyard or a park or what have you into that area there. So that's how that'll work. And once you cut it that thin, this is pretty easy, pretty pliable, pretty easy to bend, and that'll be hot glued down so it won't move. Likewise, we've got our house back up here. We've got another piece cut, and now we just need to design how we want this piece to look. And I want more room over here. So basically I want to create sort of a look like this. Now I kind of like the curved look maybe into the front. So a curved area here with a big, we're gonna have a big staircase coming out to the edge here like this. And then probably the same thing up here to kind of come in this direction here. And maybe even a little more that way, something like that. So this will all be cut. This will all be cut. And so that'll be the next cut we make. And then obviously this will be carved to match the sides down here. And then this piece will sit up here elevated higher than the other pieces. So that's gonna look really, really good, I believe. So if that's the case, Then I'm also going to need stairs here to kind of match that piece. I'm going to need stairs here to kind of match that piece, and I'm going to need stairs here to kind of match that piece. So I need stairs here, here, and here. And actually, I'm going to bring that out just a little bit bigger there. So stairs cut in all of these, as well as then the brickwork laid in. So hopefully that makes sense. That's some extra detail, and we'll go from there. So I think what I'm going to do next is cut this piece out, and then we'll get ready to start carving the stairs. Okay, so we're back out in the garage. We're going to cut this piece of foam here. So let me readjust the camera just a little bit so you can see. And we're going to start this process here. Okay, so there is that piece. That will sit just like so. And then that will be detailed all around as well with the bricks, and that'll be detailed. And so now I'm going to clean up this mess a little bit, get the next tool ready, and start carving some stairs. That'll be next, and then we'll start carving some bricks. Okay, I got the garage doors open. I'm starting to drip sweat here, but I did get this tool shaped to cut some stairs. They're probably not all going to be the same size, but yeah, maybe they will. It'll just save a little bit of time and a little bit of effort, and it'll look a little more symmetrical if they are all the same shape and size. So I'm going to use that as about the same shape and size. It's starting to heat up, as you can tell. And we're going to start carving some stairs. So while this is heating up, let me reposition the camera so you can see what I'm doing, and we'll go from there. Okay, here we are. We're going to start here with these stairs on this top piece. And I'm going to try a new methodology. There's a couple of ways you can do stairs. You can just carve them one at a time, I mean, with the same motion, or you can kind of go in and out and then, you know, do the steps that way. I'm going to try a new technique that somebody suggested. And so essentially what we're going to do is take one stair at a time. So if that's what we're going to do, then we'll go here down to about there, and then pull this straight out. Okay, and then the next stair on top of that will be about like this. Pull straight on out. The next stair will be about like that. And then the final stair will be about like that. So that's a pretty decent way to do stairs. Not too bad, not too shabby. This will all be sanded down and carved to look more round than it currently does. So we'll get to that. But let's set that piece aside. Okay, not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but they're okay. They'll be fine. Decent enough. Okay, so now let's start shaping them. Okay, so I was able to take a sanding block, and I did this outside, not in the garage, but you can see the difference by you're just kind of scrubbing around on the lip here, and then on the sides, to kind of round those out. So you see the difference in how they're starting to take more of a round shape. And so still got a little bit of work to do. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to do, so here's the before picture, and then you'll see an after picture once I'm done detailing this one as well. Okay, and here is the after piece, and you can see the difference. Okay, that's a look at the finished brickwork on this piece here. Pretty routine, pretty basic, and then that's ready for a coat of black paint. Okay, so I've been able to detail, or at least carve most of everything to include the sidewalk. And so I'll let you kind of take a look at that. I'm ready to do the tinfoil rolling technique onto the sidewalk and the bricks, just to give them a little more texture. I'm not going to do a whole lot up here because they look pretty good just the way they are. The sidewalk certainly will need that done. So if you can kind of, let me readjust the camera here just a little bit so you can see. All right, so that's how it's going to fit together. I did do a little carving because I didn't like that seam there, so I wanted to kind of cover that seam up with some more cracks, and then I think once we dig in with the foil, it'll actually mask it a little bit more. So not a lot you can do about it. This seam worked perfectly. And I just sort of guessed at where these lines, I didn't measure, I just kind of free-handed it. So it doesn't look great, but it doesn't look bad either. So we're ready for the same technique that we always use, and that's a piece of tin foil. And just right across the top of these after they've already been carved. And you see the result that you get. Okay, so I think we're ready now for the paint, and so you've seen me do that 100 times, and so here in the next day or so I will have the entire thing painted in flat black, just regular craft paint or house paint, whatever you've got. Just coat the entire thing in black, and then once that's done, then we're ready to detail this and put the road on and things like that. So still got a long way to go, but this is a good place to stop for tutorial number 1. Okay, well, hopefully that helps you to understand the complexity or the simplicity, however you want to look at it, of creating a piece with a curve. The right tool for the right job certainly makes this chore a little bit easier, but it can be done in a wide variety of ways. I just showed you the way that I do it. I think once we're done and you see everything glued down and as the painting happens, it'll start to look better and better and better. And then, as always, the details, the small details, help to make any village really come to life. So you got that to look forward to as we continue this tutorial series. Speaking of which, the next tutorial we're going to focus, the pieces will already be painted black, so we'll go through and kind of do the three-tone painting process to get the brick to look like brick, to get the sidewalk to look like sidewalk, and then we'll be ready to fasten the road down, and then to put the curb and the sidewalk on, glue those down, and then start with decorating with the moss and placing the buildings where they're going to go and all of that. So several more pieces of this tutorial to come, but this is a good way to kick this one off. I know it's been highly requested. So with that, if you've enjoyed this video, please make sure you click the like button. If you have comments or questions, please list those and I will get back to those as soon as I possibly can. Love seeing your comments and love answering the questions that you post. And then, as always, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. It certainly is helping the channel grow. It helps me out, gets me more views and more followers, and the channel just continues to grow, and I certainly do appreciate that. So with that, we're going to call this one done, and until next time, take care of yourselves. We'll talk again real soon.